Hello everybody, my name is Spoons Rattling, and welcome to Scrub Paints 2, which is on my new Space Marine chapter. Like the Eldar, this will be a short series on how to paint up my new color scheme. Anyways, first things first, we need to paint the armor, and the first paints we're going to be using is Kantor Blue from Games Workshop, as you can see here. This is a strong base coat, and it just gives a very nice deep blue color, which is very useful for the color scheme we're going for, which is a ghostly aesthetic. This chapter has an ancient monsters thing for their names and vehicles. Here's the color scheme on Mark 7 power armor. You can see that it's dark Kantor blue with an Ulthuan gray for the trim. Of course, Corvus armor doesn't have as much trim, so you'll have to do some edge highlighting, but only a little bit, as to keep this video beginner friendly. Just make sure you paint all the armor panels, and once you do, after the first coat, it'll look like this, but it'll definitely need 2 coats as it's still a little patchy and dull in color. After you add the second coat, it'll look something like this. It has a nice, smooth finish and is very easy to work with, as Kantor Blue is a very strong color, making any mistakes very easy to fix. Next up on the agenda, we have Heavy Blue-Gray from Vallejo. We're going to use this to paint the bonding studs and the harness sort of cable things on his chest and on his midriff. Just take your time and pick out all the bonding studs. Bonding studs can be slightly annoying to paint, but they are in general good practice for brush control, and this model's even better for it, as the Kantor Blue is so strong it easily fixes any mistakes you make by splotching any gray onto the main blue. Again, just take your time and pick out each one, trying to cover the whole thing, and you won't make mistakes, as I did here. I like leaving these mistakes in as it helps show that everyone makes mistakes, even the content creators who make videos like this for a living, as I plan to do. Once you've got that, you also use this color to paint the shoulder pads, which I stupidly did off camera. But anyways, just pick out the shoulder pads like this. They're quite large and bulky, so you don't really risk painting onto the blue below, but again, the blue is so strong it can easily fix any mistakes you may make. Then you move on to the harness, paint this in. Make sure you have enough paint on your brush, of course, but not too much as to clog up the detail. Then just paint this on in 1 or 2 coats, depending on how strong it appears over your black base coat. For me, it was so strong, I only needed 1 coat. I also painted the midriff cable this color as well, as I felt it just made sense, to keep the color scheme united. And now we're on to the next section. This section we're using Ulthuan Gray as the first highlight, to highlight the heavy blue-gray we just put down, by picking out the highest areas on the blue-gray we used. As you can see here, oh wait, I have to go back to get more paint. Just line up your brush and paint the topmost parts in 1 thin coat. It'll make sure the colors at the top are brighter and the colors on the bottom half are duller. It's quite an easy effect to do, and is quite forgiving as well. And here's a close-up of my hands, because I very sillily put my hands in front of the miniature, causing the camera to autofocus on them. But anyways, I also picked out a few lines on the midriff cable just to give it a bit more visual interest, and make it brighter compared to the dark blue. I also placed a dot on each of the bonding studs at their topmost area to make them more visually interesting and to pop more from the model. You can see this sped up, as recording all of that and showing all of that would take simply too long. Here's what the model looks like after the first highlighting. You see, it just adds something to the gray, giving it a brighter appearance, and just making it more interesting, as well as being good practice for the future. The next step, we're going to use Kantor Blue plus just a tiny drop of Ulthuan Gray to make a lighter blue. And this is where we're going to do our first major highlight of the armor. And actually, yeah, the first major and only real highlight of the armor panels. What you do, or what I do, is I look at the model from the top down, as you'll see here soon, and any parts of the model, for example, the shoulder pad, you just put a thin glaze of the light blue on top of it. It really just helps the armor pop and stand out more from the rest of the area. Painted on top of the power pack, and I believe here in a moment I show off, yes, just like that. It's not a perfect angle, but looking at it head on, you'll see that you can see areas like this part of the shin guard, or I guess lower leg guard. You just simply glaze it on, not really glaze, but just paint it on, and it will make the color lighter while still not being super obvious that you just painted on a brighter color. It dries quite quickly if you need to correct things, or to add more if you want the colors to be more extreme. Looks like I took a short break there. I look at the model again, show you guys the model again slightly, and then just keep picking it out. I also picked out the back area of the left leg, and the top of the power pack again. I guess I decided I needed more light blue on that area. Here's what the model looks like so far. I then painted the helmet gray as well, as this is a character. If he was not, you would just leave that the dark blue. Next, mix up Abaddon black and Ulthuan gray to make an off-black color that looks actually quite soft when it dries. I use this on the rubber under armor of the suit. Just fill in any joints that are actually visible. Remember, if you can't see the ribbed rubber, you don't need to paint it. I also painted the belt this color, so if you'd like to get that out of the way now, you can just do that as well. You may notice I also painted the sword gray, but that was simply a mistake that you do not need to copy. I also painted the neck, and even though it's not important, I do like to do it. Here's what the model looks like thus far. It's really coming together, and is nearly done. For this next section, I used Glacier Blue, which is a nice blue-white color. I used this to to edge highlight the armor, actually. Starting with the shoulder pads, you'll see here in a second. Now, I did this at a rather bad angle, so it'd be hard to see. But any place you can, just use the side of your brush. It makes edge highlighting very easy. Occasionally, you will have to use the tip of your brush, as you can see here. Well, the thing is, especially with a color scheme like this, is the Kantor Blue is so strong, you can just come back in and fill in any super blotchy areas you made, like I did a couple times. See, I picked out the bonding studs shoulder pad as well. Again, off camera like a fool, but you do get a nice look at my hands if you want to see those. Just work your way around and edge highlight any hard angles, like the bottom of the shoulder pads. It also helps since there's no real trim built into the beaky armor. I also picked out this area, these sort of top of the shin guards, as they're quite sharp and easy to highlight, and add a nice bit of contrast and help break up the armor. I also did around back of the boots. This is quite an easy area to practice your edge highlighting on as well. Of course, I still made a splotch right there, which again is easy to fix with Kantor Blue. Then on the other foot, you can see I again made another mistake. You'll see here, I accidentally painted some on the boot itself. But again, Kantor Blue is easy to work with, and very easy to fix any mistakes you make. So just work your way around, and once everything's said and done, you can touch up with Kantor Blue again. Next, I used Gunmetal Blue, which is a very fun blue metallic color that's very strong. I used this on the blade, and then I used, I believe this is Ulthuan Gray, to highlight the helmet. This really helps it stand out on the tabletop, and it's quite simple to do. You just drag your brush down along the top of the helmet. It adds a nice bright area, and on the tabletop it looks like a professionally painted area. From there, I used Gunmetal Blue again, as you'll see here in a moment, to paint the bolt gun casing. I like this color as it's just quite fun, and it works quite well with the dark blue color scheme I'm going for. So paint this on, and then that's pretty much all I actually need to show you, except for the crest. Now just wait for those layers to dry, and you can move on to the next step, which is the eyes. Once again, this model is quite good for that, as the beaky helmet is quite easy to paint eyes on. Because the beak is so wide, it's easy to fix any mistakes by just simply painting on the base color again. I used moot green for the eyes, but you could use any color you'd want, really. I just think this helps with the ghostly aesthetic I'm going for. Just simply brace your hands against each other and paint in. You'll usually get it quite close, and the more you do it, the better it'll get. So paint in the eyes. As you can see, they're quite striking with that white helmet, or gray, I suppose. And then you can move on to the next step, which is using the gunmetal blue again to paint the sort of metallic parts of the crest, and the little laser sight thing on his helmet. Again, just a quick coat on either side, and on the I suppose the sides. Just make sure you don't forget those areas. There's a plane going overhead. Anyways, and then you use the moot green again to paint the head crest. This is quite striking on the tabletop, and I quite like the way it came out. And though I didn't record it, I mixed up dark green, any dark green would work, with a midwinter medium to make a wash that I put all over this moot green to help it have a bit more body and to also pick out the raised areas as bright green and the lower areas as dark green. This model, and then, of course, just paint the bolt gun and the backpack with your gun wall. And this is the final result. I think it looks quite nice. I did some extra edge highlighting on the butt plate and on the backpack, but that's not necessary for your basic troops. Of course, I also painted the handle for the sword very simply with red and gold. If you liked this video, make sure to like and subscribe, as I'll be doing a video every day in July. See ya!